I mean, what was Wembley like? I mean,
it was crazy.
I know it's like the Freddie Mercury Live Aid.
Yeah, that was it. That was like, I was like, I want that.
You're listening to Studio 22.
Welcome to Studio 22. I'm Will Meldman, here with my amazing co-host, Brock O'Hearn. And today, our first podcast of 2023, we are utterly delighted to have the multi-talented artist in the studio with us, Kiesza.
Hello. Do I look at the camera? Hi.
We can all look at the camera. Everyone look into your...
Look into my eyes. Look into my eyes.
There we go.
You're under.
How's it going, Kiesza?
It's good.
Have you been?
2023. I have been... That's a very loaded question. I've been great. And also just like pushing myself through the most immense personal growth ever, which has been harder than I thought. So...
it's never easy.
Yeah, but it's good. But good. It's like, it's great. It's like we have to do this in our lives.
Yeah.
If we want to, like, I don't know, just get to new levels and change and progress. So,
are there any things that you're doing specifically, or is it kind of life is just throwing it at you and taking it as you go?
A lot of it's very like self-propelled, actually. Life has been throwing a lot my way for many years, but I find like we don't always have the opportunity to like sit with ourselves and be accountable to ourselves and then dig it up and work through it. And I've been just sort of very proactively doing that with myself and finding a lot more than I was expecting and realizing how hard it is to change, how many patterns our ego has that is, you know, creating walls for, I think, our soul, our heart, to be its fullest. So I was just bumping into my ego everywhere and trying to smack it down and work with it and evolve and really ultimately just be happy as I can possibly be. I feel like that's my real goal in life now. Is it's less material than it's ever been, and it's more just about fulfilling happiness with myself and my friends and my life, and making my life my ultimate work of art. So
yeah. I think that's one thing I've enjoyed as I've gotten older is realizing the things that really matter.
Yeah.
And where we place our, values and making our morals and really how we show up in the world. Cause I don't care so much about the material side of things. I do enjoy it, especially when it comes to creating and having more access to creating things that I love and want to do. But what do I really value? And I've said this for years, it's, when it comes to friends and people I choose and allow in my life, it doesn't matter what you've accomplished or what you've done, how much you have, how little you have. It comes down to your character and your moral compass. And if you're a good person, then I'll allow you to, be a part of my life. And I would hope to be the same in someone else's. But it's not always, so black and white. But it really, I feel that life is too short to spend our time purposefully with negative people if you don't have to.
Yeah, absolutely. And also just understanding that everybody who's maybe negative is also going through their own expansion and bumping into their own walls and protecting themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Often from themselves.
Yeah.
Something I've learned is to try not to judge people when they are negative in my life. Just understand that they're just not meant to be in my life right now because of where they're at, but to not like project anger onto them.
Sorry.
But
I've always looked at that too as, everyone's going through their own journey and you truly never know to the full capacity of what someone's going through. So to show up with empathy and understanding and just people, you'll be able to, I always say they'll tell you everything without saying anything. You just have to listen and pay attention. And it's pretty wild that there are so many moments that, we're all going through something or multiple things and dealing with things differently and how we react to stuff as well. So kind of how you show up and understand, that a lot of times people are doing the best they can with what they know. And it's not always easy for everyone. So
yeah, it's tough. This life is tough. Being collapsed into this form is pressure within itself.
Do you read any Eckhart Tolle?
I have, yeah, actually.
Yeah. He's like been one of my biggest sources of like personal growth for sure. Kind of like Brock was saying, for me, it was kind of mid to late 20s when I started really kind of getting into personal growth and all that, and like recognizing ego and how even judgment can be ego, where, you know, if you fear something or if someone fears something, then they'll judge someone else for it or whatever it may be. But yeah, it's great to hear, because that's like what life is, right? Just like one giant path of personal growth, and some people achieve it more than others and some don't, but it's really just enjoying the journey and trying to get through.
Yep.
A big part of me has always been, and then we can get on to the fun stuff, the music and everything. but although I truly enjoy talking about this, is lost my train of thought. That's great. Fantastic.
We'll get back to it. It
We're
will
gonna
pop
get back
into
to
your
it.
head. Yeah. I love it when you lose your train of thought and then it like pops into your head and like, oh, I got it.
Yeah.
And it's like halfway through the conversation.
Yeah, he'll just come back in. Boom.
Back to the beginning.
Yeah. But no, it's like Eckhart Tolle. Is that, am I saying it correct?
I've called him Tolle, and then
Tolle,
someone kept
Tolle.
telling me it was Tolle.
Tolle.
I like Tolle.
I said
but
Tolle
whatever.
for a while. So Eckhart Tolle.
No judgment.
Tolle. Yeah, no, I've been really going on different directions. Like I went through this really intense journey to dig through my ego and like really find the source of who I am, and that really pure source without all the layers, and get to that and live in it and just experience being just that. And I actually got there, and I did get that experience that he talked about where it's just complete awe and ecstasy. And I wasn't there for like as long as I'd wanted to, but I felt that and was like, wow, okay. Once you felt that, you're like, okay, I want to get back to that. But at the same time, I was sort of moving away from my ego and being like, there's this whole thing in the world that's like, get rid of the ego. Ego's bad, you know? But really, I see the ego as just what is filtering through us. So whatever doors we're closing, whatever windows we're shutting, and whatever we're allowing to project into this world is our ego. And that's just, it's who we are in this sort of projected reality and what we're willing to give to the world. And that can shift every day and every really second. And so I'm trying not to see that as a bad thing, but just as a projection of what I'm willing to give. So
I love that concept of like living with it, right? Because it's like fear can be good. Fear can keep us alive, right? Like it's not always an unhealthy
fear
thing
does keep us alive. Like fear isn't such a bad thing, you know, when you're navigating this world. I mean,
it's a teacher.
It's a rainy day right now. If I didn't have any fear, I might drive too fast and then
and like
die.
we need money to survive, right? So we can't just like completely detach from the material world into the formless realm. But
it's part of.
It's like our senses. I went through this whole process where I was trying to detach from my senses as my form of happiness, because I noticed so many people who seek thrills. And they find thrill in that moment where they're fully suspended and feeling weightless while they're skydiving or riding, I don't know, a motorcycle or something. Often can't bring that back to their life when they're just sitting doing nothing. And I would ask myself, well, why? Why do they need to find the happiness in this like extreme moment, and why can't they have it just sitting on a couch?
Right.
So it kind of pulled me in two directions, because I think our senses can take us to the same place that is already existing all the time within us. And so I'm on this sort of like place where I really believe we're always at the beginning, the middle, and the end simultaneously. And we're always there, and we're always looking to get there. And we've really never left. So
That's
the truth.
That's awesome. Yeah, Kiesza's we've had some very fun, interesting, deep conversation over the years.
Conversations.
It's always fun.
Maybe that's why you don't hang out too much, because it gets so intense that we have to like recover. We're like, oh man.
If that's the reason.
I don't think I can walk out my front door today now after thinking about that.
There's definitely a lot. It's pretty incredible what your mind can do, and where you can take things, and what thought can provoke and create. And my thought that I lost is now back.
Good. I've been waiting for it.
Yeah. But it comes down to, people in your life, and realizing when I was saying negative people, it's like we all have negative moments. We all have positive, and there's always going to be everything in between as well, I feel. But recognizing, I feel, how you show up in the world, that self-actualization, but also how other people are showing up and what they may need in those moments. And I've always looked at it to a degree as, why is this person here? You know, are they here to teach me something? Am I here to teach them something? Are we supposed to just have passing, you know, share a moment, share energy, whatever it may be? Are they supposed to come and never come into my life again? Or am they supposed to come in, be negative, teach me something, and then I grow and move on to the next thing, you know, or vice versa? So I always find that part fascinating, and why and who you attract in your life, you know.
Yeah, I really believe people come into our lives for a purpose.
Yeah.
The more that the more that I bump into people, especially the more that I focus on my own growth, I sort of see now how life presents you with opportunities to grow with people, like especially with what mirrors back at you from the people that you're hanging out with.
Yeah. And what you're attracting.
Yeah, exactly. And what you're pulling out of each other, because I really do believe everyone has greatness within them. It's just whether or not you're able to find it with each other. And some of the most negative people have the most incredible qualities. They just only very few people can find it. But it's there. And you can sense that within people. And I think a lot of us get attracted to people that are negative because we can feel their greatness and we want to pull it out of them, but they don't let us. So we work harder to get that out of them, even if they're not willing to give it. And sometimes you have to be like, okay, they're just not going to give it to me. And that's okay. I have to just step back.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I got to a point in my life that with people, I would always want to help them, and you know, continue to do that throughout my life. But I got to a point where I realized I was giving and giving and giving to the point where it was hurting me.
Yeah.
So now I've learned to pull that back in whatever scale it is for me at the moment, to where I help until that moment comes. And if it helps, great. If it doesn't, you know, I have to cut ties at that moment or create distance or whatever it may be, so that I don't get hurt, because then that limits my ability to help other people.
It's so important to have boundaries.
Yeah.
I had the same issue. I just help. Somebody needs something, I show up, I give everything, to the point where I'm exhausted and drained. And then you find they don't always return the favor. Not that you can go in with any expectations, but there has to be a balance. I really believe balance is the word that drives my whole existence now. I'm like, is there balance in this situation? Is there balance in this relationship? Is there balance within my body? I mean, as a bodybuilder, it's all just balance that you're working through.
Yeah,
and,
which I'm constantly fighting.
And in our lives, like balancing our career with our relationships, with our family, with our health, you know, with our dogs.
Penny's birthday today.
Yay.
Shout out.
Happy birthday, Penny. But yeah, it's like, how do you balance it all? Because ultimately our life is our greatest work of art. And so if we're focusing only on career, which I think, especially in the United States, like it's very much like, what is your career? What have you accomplished? And then you rate yourself based on like how much money you have and this. And then you get to these points and you're like, well, the feeling inside of me, I'd rate as like a 10 out of 100. So have I really accomplished anything? So it's like, yeah, you want all the material stuff is amazing if what's going on within you is also at 100% or even 90%. You just have to like balance it all.
I always think of like Citizen Kane, right? He's like one of the most famous, richest people in the world, but he's in an empty home and he just got, out of his relationship and all that. And I feel like that's like a classic example of like, you can have everything, but if you don't have anyone around to share with, and what's it all worth, right?
Yeah. I mean, I experienced that actually when my song, I mean, we can segue. We can bring them all together, actually, both conversations, because I experienced going from like starving artist, literally like struggling very hard in New York City, living in a shoebox, to suddenly having my song blow up and being everywhere, top charting in like 21 countries international and like top 10 and many more. And then suddenly, my dream was to play Wembley Stadium packed at some point in my life. And I was playing Wembley Stadium 4 months into my song coming out. And so I got to that point where I was like, well, now what do I do?
Yeah.
And hit this like massive success that was in my mind. Getting to this point was where everything would come together, where all my happiness would be fulfilled, where I'd have, access to whatever I wanted, and that would be happiness. And weirdly enough, it was like the saddest time in my life because it was so off balance. I had no time for myself. I lost my social relationships. I was working way too hard to maintain that level. You get there and then you have to maintain it, and it takes everything out of you.
One of my very successful friends said it's hard to get to the top. It's even harder to stay there.
Yeah, and you have to ask yourself, why am I staying here? It's like you'd climb Mount Everest, but are you going to hang out at the top? You can't breathe.
Right.
You need to breathe, so you got to kind of go down and go up again. But
that's a good analogy. I mean, what was Wembley like? I mean,
it was crazy.
I know it's like the Freddie Mercury Live Aid.
Yeah,
like,
that was it. That was like, I was like, I want that. It was a show like that too. It was a mixed show, so it had like Ariana Grande and Taylor Swift and I don't know, a bunch of huge artists at the time. Then it was a big radio show, and they put me on an elevator and they're like, you're going to pop out at some point. And I was like, when? They're like, I don't know, but you're just going to pop up.
Just be ready for the biggest moment ever.
No, this is not cool. No. And I popped up and there was 88,000 people towering above me going I went instantly into a high. My first note I sang wrong. I was like I gulped, and then I was like, okay, got this. And then apparently I was so high off the crowd by the end of it that I actually got lost. Like I got off. I was the only artist who, like, there was like a thrust that went way into the crowd, and then there was just the big stage, and every artist either performed on one or the other, and I started on one and ran out to the other and ended on the end. Wow. So I had to come down the stage in the middle of the audience, and I was just like feeling it so much that I was just talking to everybody in the crowd and taking pictures, and they lost me. And apparently they were sending security to try to find me for a while. And
good luck.
Actually lost in the crowd.
My team was really pissed when I came back. And I was just like, what? Why is everyone so like upset?
That was great.
But yeah, you really like, that's the biggest, even though it wasn't the most, I'd say, connected show because it was a mixed crowd. And obviously Taylor Swift has more fans than I did. But the energy I got from that huge crowd, it put me into the biggest crowd high I've ever experienced.
What is that feeling? I've been on stage in front of tens and hundreds. I don't know how many the most I've been in front of, but pretty big. But I wasn't performing.
Right, yeah, it's different.
Much different.
It's one thing to see the crowd. It's another thing to have the crowd reacting to your every move. And you're like the conductor of this ocean of souls, essentially. And you tell them to do something and they do it. You tell them to scream and they scream. It's like, there's a bit of a godlike feeling to it when they're fully connected to you. They're like, you're also their anchor. You're holding everyone in this room down, and there's a lot of pressure that goes with that. And so your adrenaline just kicks in. And it's fun.
And they're like trusting you to conduct, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is you get off stage. That's the problem. And I'm on a new journey, which we'll talk about too in my life right now. Where everyone talks about getting on stage and getting the high on stage and fully connecting and finding yourself on stage. I am now at a point where when I teach people, I'm like, you need to be able to walk off stage and be okay, because that's where the real crash happens. Because when you get to that point where you're so fully switched on and you get off stage, everything by contrast just feels numb. Mm. And you go into your hotel room and you're staring at a blank wall and you're like, wait, what is going on? Why am I here? There's no feedback. And you have trouble balancing just your regular existence with that feeling that you get on stage, and life becomes dull in comparison. So
that's interesting.
Therein lies I call it the turning both ways, living in two directions.
Yeah.
You really have to go inward equally, and there's balance in that too, in an equal amount that you go outward, or else you will cave in one direction or the other.
That's fascinating. I've never heard that before. I mean, obviously, I think that's something that maybe musicians can all relate to and share, but also maybe comedians and people that are in front of big stages. But yeah, I'm thinking of that like as an actor, and I'm like, yeah, maybe we get like 200 people in a room max. And maybe there's millions of people viewing the work, but I can't imagine what it's like in front of a crowd like that. That's incredible.
I think in that sense, it's a little easier and more balanced to be an actor. Because you find comedians, musicians, they deal with some of the highest level of depression in the world. Especially comedians. I think they're number one because they're going out and they're making people laugh, but then they walk off stage and like life isn't a joke.
And there's a lot of truth, right, to like some of the jokes they tell if they're feeling something or something in their life. It's like they're actually taking some pain and their way of dealing with pain is turning it into a joke.
Yeah.
So if the more jokes they have, sometimes the more pain it could be.
And they're helping other people process their pain, but
True.
They're not laughing.
True.
You know, they're being laughed at. They're the ones who actually need the most help, and they need somebody doing that for them. They're doing it for everybody else. Yeah.
How is you said in the beginning a lot of ego with, creating. How has it changed making music for you since you first started?
It's changed a lot. I'm actually struggling right now because I have a finished album, which is my favorite album I've ever made, and I can't put it out. I don't know why. It's like
give me your phone.
I'm sitting. I know. I'm sitting on this album that it's sort of the beginning of this 2-directional journey. I've made a dance album start to finish. There's 12 songs, but they're not like I've walked into certain offices with people and played it, and they're like, "This isn't a dance album." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, it is because it's dance tempo and you can dance your ass off to it." But they're like, "Well, this is like country fused with house fused with like banjo," and I'm like, "Yeah,
that sounds awesome.
That is where I am in my life right now." So it's a fusion of genres, but all melded together in dance tempo essentially. And I really want to make the dance world a little more artist driven, more poetic, and I want you to be able to dig up your emotions on the dance floor. And I haven't revealed the album title yet. I can't do that yet, but it will make a lot of sense when it comes out. But I dug myself up to make this album, but this has been me going inward, and I've been struggling to balance the outward expression of that. And I feel very like not shut down, but I feel very like I'm turning inward. And I've sort of stopped turning outward for a while. And I know that I have to turn out now at the same time to balance this story that I've created and this journey I want to take people on, and for it to make sense. So I've given myself the space to just sort of kind of poke my head out and try to figure out who I am now. I've always been like fashion person, and this is my outfit. And, I love performing, but I want to come out with full honesty. And that can present itself as cool fashion and color schemes and things like that. But just being fully honest, as a fully authentic and honest expression of myself that's not altered by what I feel the world is telling me I need to do. And I wonder all the time if I am being influenced by the world around me and being pressured by fear and fear of failure and things like that. And I want to go boldly into the world with this new expression and just be just a flowing river, So I've been waiting till I feel like I'm in a place where when I put that music out, I'm ready to propel it. There's force behind it, and I have to flip all this energy that's digging myself up within, and I have to push it in the other direction. So I'm not quite there yet.
I mean, it sounds incredible. Like, I feel like, haven't spoken with many musicians, but I think, like, we were talking to Morton. I'll mention Morton specifically about, like, he's kind of said the more he can truly reflect himself in his music, the more successful it typically ends up becoming.
Oh, yeah, I believe that fully.
And I feel like that's, synonymous kind of with what you're saying, right? Like, in order to take that giant inward journey and then project it outwards.
Yeah.
And that authenticity's got to
we tend to filter it, based on fear, based on what the world is telling us. And they do tell us, like, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. That's not going to make sense. No one's going to get that. But the point is people don't want what's already out there. They want something that's really whole. And we are whole. Every single one of us is whole, not just because of our good qualities, but our negative. Everything that creates us is what makes us whole. And so putting a full expression of ourselves into the world is what people want. So if we just project ourselves, people are going to connect no matter what. So
yeah, my first intro into Hollywood, I didn't have any real true acting experience. And so I figured a good segue would be modeling because I didn't know what else to do. And first place I went into was the biggest agency there, and they wanted to sign me, but I was too tall. So I went to the second one the same day, got signed on the spot across the board. And as soon as I signed, the next week they're like, you need to cut your hair, you need to stop working out your these things, you need to stop doing this, stop doing that. And I was just like, no, I'm good, and because of that, I went viral on the internet, and it changed my life and opened up all the doors. And I've always felt, that we should strive to live in our truth and express ourselves the way that we want to and show up in the world how we want to, and I think that if I had done all those things, I would have been a cog in the wheel instead of, my own.
You would have been just a copy of something else, someone else, and people wouldn't have connected to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fear, the resistance, even the fear we feel within ourselves as it's coming out is part of that whole expression. And being vulnerable with that to the world. We show up as fearless, and we show up as people who can't make mistakes, and everything's great. Everyone's smiling right now. I mean, you look on Instagram, everyone's living their best life, and yet suicide's higher than it's ever been. No one feels confident to just say that they're struggling and to ask for help right now. And more than ever, I think almost anyone needs help. We've been through a very traumatic few years as a world. And we're just kind of coming out of that now. We're processing the growth. I think people feel so much pressure right now because we've dug ourselves up. We've had to for 2 years, 3 years during this pandemic world. And a lot of people realize that their life they were living wasn't the life they wanted. So they're bumping into themselves. They feel pressure. They feel that growth and that expansion. But they don't know how to break out of those walls. And so people are popping like popcorn right now. And that's kind of what took me to my new journey in life. I'm going to Norway.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. That's why I was like, Brock, you got to get me on here now because
I know.
Going north.
What's, I know, but for everyone else, what's taking you to Norway?
I guess there's so many layers to my journey, and you obviously know me and know what I've been through in the car crash many years ago that sidelined my whole career. So I don't know if you know my story at all, but I went from 0 to 1,000%, had the career of my dreams, and then was in a brutal car crash that gave me a very, very serious brain injury that took me years to recover from. So I lost everything as quickly as I got it. And that for me was quite a struggle because my ego was holding on to this idea of myself that I'd created that wasn't necessarily happy, but I had built up to that for so long that when I had it, I felt like I needed to hold on to that. I couldn't lose it. And then it was all taken away. And I desperately tried to get that back. I didn't want to tell anyone that I was injured. I thought I'd get through it fast within a few months. And then years went by and I was still struggling and realized that the only way I was going to heal was to actually let go of that version of myself. And there was this whole grieving process where I didn't know who I was. I was a broken, injured person. I had been invincible. I was a dancer. I was like, I could do anything. I learned fast. So this new version of myself was just not me as I knew it. But what I had to learn, it was just as much me. It was a new expression of me. And I went through this whole healing process where I started to take this inward journey. And not by choice, it was by necessity. And I was stuck alone in dark rooms by myself with only myself to dig up. And I don't think I would have gone on this journey had it not been for that. I really don't. And in that sense, I am grateful for that pain and that struggle. And the growth that it has given me is what drives me to keep going. So in this process, I learned a lot about trauma, and I learned to really study people because I was dealing with, an invisible injury, and I had to make sure that I was actually, my emotions and a lot of things that I thought I was expressing myself like the way that I felt, and it was coming out differently. So I went through this weird process where what was coming out of me was different than what I was feeling within. So I had to reconnect that. And I developed this sort of ability to x-ray through people's egos quickly because what I did to myself, I can see in other people now, and I can see what they're holding back. And it was just by accident. I went to Norway. I wanted to start giving back because I realized that my biggest time and the hardest part of my career was at the beginning when nobody would let me through the door and nobody told me how to get there. So I wanted to start giving back to the younger generation. And I went out to this really cool school that some friends of mine started in Norway where they find some of the best new talents and they bring them to Norway and they just focus on songwriting and production and turning them into like Swiss Army knives of the songwriting world. And they're so talented. And I was brought out as a songwriting mentor. But when I was there, they looked me up and they're like, wow, you can perform. We'd love to have a performance class, which I wasn't prepared for. So they really put me on the spot. And I was like, okay, I didn't think about this, but why don't we just dive right into it and see what happens? So the students would get on stage and all this healing journey that I went on myself, just the silver lining came out in that moment. I started seeing in their bodies before my eyes, I could see where their trauma was getting stuck in points of stress in their bodies. And for some reason, I just instinctively knew how to unlock it and trick their brains into unlocking this stress in their bodies like a little jigsaw puzzle. So instead of teaching them how to perform, I just unlocked their system. And like magic, it was the most profound experience that I think any of us in the room had been through. It was so apparent, the group mind effect that humans have with one another, because when they finally connected with themselves, the whole audience felt it in an instant and they would just scream. They didn't even know what was going on. And instantly, without anything visibly changing, the student went from being a performer you didn't want to watch to being somebody you couldn't take your eyes off of, even if they were just standing still. So the school was like, what did you do? And I literally was like, I have no idea. And they're just like, okay, well, you got to do more of that. And so I was like, okay, bring me back. Let me see if I can repeat it. And every time I've been doing it, I've been getting better at it. I've been discovering new things, not only about the physical body, but actually now I'm moving into the aura, the space around us that's actually another part of our body, that we actually hold trauma around us as well as within ourselves. So now they're actually bringing me out to spend a few months with the students as opposed to a few days and build out, just kind of develop. It's like my own lab, research lab of the soul. How do I find their souls and bring them out and make them the most authentic version of themselves?
But straight to human trial.
Yeah, literally. It's crazy. The last time I went, students were crying in the audience who hadn't even gotten on stage. Like it really is an emotional experience. And I don't know where it's going to lead, but I realize I can't really unlock them like that and leave them hanging. So I'm going to go for an extended period of time and we're going to see what happens. But ultimately I am just like a compass that points them in the direction of learning how to love themselves and how to project it into the world. So it's pretty exciting.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, those students must be beside themselves, like getting to learn from someone as talented as you. I mean, that must be incredible, especially with all that like personal growth and, that's exciting. That's really cool to be able to give that back.
Yeah, it's weird too, because at the end of every class, I just ask them if they've actually learned anything they didn't know before I came in. And none of them say yes. Like they all knew everything within themselves. They just had to be honest with themselves to get it out into the world. So I can't really say I'm a teacher. I'm just sort of like a locksmith. I'm like just unlocking them in different ways. But
it sounds like it's working.
It is, yeah. I feel like maybe that might be my purpose in this chapter of my life. It's just to really help people get to who they are.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to find out here shortly.
I know. I might be coming back being like, guys, didn't work. But I'll update. We'll have another podcast.
Yeah. Hopefully not in 2 years or 3 years. And, I mean, hopefully, yes, of course. I'd love that for you, but I would miss you.
Well, you guys come to Norway.
We'll do the traveling pod.
Yeah.
Traveling pod.
I do want to go to Norway. It looks pretty incredible.
It's amazing. I live on a ski hill.
Oh,
wow. There's a ski jump right next to my house. People are just
over your house.
Yeah, almost.
That's heaven.
It really is heaven. I'm so excited. Yeah.
They get the northern lights out there, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love the aurora
They're so cute too. Like one thing I noticed there, because in LA you see everybody just jogging, jogging by themselves in their yoga pants and spandex.
Yeah.
In Norway, in this little town where I'm going, they're all it's like husband and wife jogging together with their dog. They're all holding hands, and it's just so like they're so connected as a family unit. And I realized they really push that there. And rarely do I see one person jogging. It's always a couple jogging together, and I just thought it was so cool to see.
Yeah, strong sense of family and community.
Yeah, and just connection with one another. They really push that. They don't push the individual standing out as much, but they do push the connection with one another. So I guess there's no right or wrong. It's just different, really.
It's good to be different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, should we take it way back?
Yeah.
And when did you first get into music? Like, when did you first kind of discover it?
I was a tall ship sailor. I have the weirdest stories. I was sailing on a wooden tall ship, and it's this gigantic double-masted, like 7-sail schooner that held like 30 people and had a crew of like 7. And I was like, I went from being like a trainee on it to volunteering and working on the ship. And there was the bosun, who's the lover of the ship. He's the person who fixes everything, and like anything breaks, the bosun fixes. And they know the boat inside out. And so the bosun of our ship, named John, we hit this storm in the middle of the night. It was wild. Like pots and pans were flying back and forth in the cupboards and waking everybody up. And it was the most magical moment of my life, because nobody could sleep. It was just so much rattling going on, and we're all kind of like getting rocked back and forth. But John came down into the hold where we were all sleeping, just whipped out a guitar, started singing lullabies, and nothing changed other than the fact that he started singing, and people just started dropping like flies to sleep. And I was in awe. I was like, that is the most incredible power I've ever seen. Like, how did he do this? And whatever he has, I want it. And the next day I asked him to teach me some chords on the guitar, and I wrote my first song, and I started being the ship lullabyist. And I started out as a lullaby writer, and I only sang to people on the ship. And
Get back to work, John. I got this.
yeah. So all
That's
my first
awesome.
songs are like folk lullabies. And people then just asked me to record them, and they wanted copies of the songs I was writing. And then somebody sent my demo to a music school, and I was actually sailing to Hawaii at the time. And when I arrived in Hawaii, I got this phone call from my mom being like, "Did you apply for college?" I was like, "No." She's like, "Well, you got into college." And I was like, "What?" And yeah, my friend had sent my CD to a college, and they accepted me without application. And I had to leave my trip where I was going to be sailing to Japan potentially, and I had to make a decision. Will I be a captain of a ship, or will I be a musician? And I took a chance on music, and I went to the music school, and that's where my journey began.
That is an awesome story.
Yeah.
That is definitely unique. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I never heard that before.
You didn't hear that?
No.
See?
I mean, I knew
Yeah.
had done the ship stuff.
We have a lot more hanging out
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah. What the heck?
I know.
Or is this going to be a 17-hour podcast?
Probably. We have at least 17 hours of stuff to talk about.
Yeah. That's pretty great.
Like your pink hat, for example.
Oh, yeah.
I love that you wear pink.
Pink hat.
I like a man in pink.
Yeah. My little brother, who's 9, he loved pink pajamas. And then my father started wearing pink, like golf clothes, because we'd all go out on the course all together. And then it just trickled down.
So the whole family
me.
wears pink?
Well, it was like not all the time, but like, the little brother was super into it. So
That's
we were
so
like
cute.
doing it for him. And now, yeah. Now
it's
he's
like
all
your
into
brand.
Oh, that's the saying.
Yeah.
Real men wear pink.
Yeah, there you go.
So
Yeah,
there
they're
you
not
go.
afraid.
Yeah.
In Africa, pink is a masculine color.
Oh, that's
Really?
cool.
Yeah. It's
I
like
like that.
fully masculine.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's like totally opposite.
I'm all about it.
So all
Yeah.
the men are wearing pink. It's a good
Yeah,
color.
I'm just going to do full body suit pink from now on.
Yeah.
That would look good on you. You have the complexion for pink.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I can't imagine looking like a giant Pepto-Bismol walking down the street, but
I can. I think it would be great.
like a 7-foot
I
giant.
await the day. The red carpet appearance of Studio 22,
Mhm.
all in pink.
I promised
That might work.
my mom that if I ever get invited to the Oscars, she's the only one I can take. Pull a Leo. I did like out of a production fascination and like a music video lover. I was like really curious about the Hideaway video. You know, you see it obviously like on YouTube it's got to be like 1 billion plus views now with like
between all the different links, it has about 1 billion.
It's insane. But it's such an amazing video, and like I love stuff done in like one take. Can you like take us there? And
can I take you?
Yeah,
can I take you back?
You take me back.
I might be doing another one take actually. I figured since I'm launching a dance album, and that was the launch of my dance song, which I've never done a dance album before. It's always been like very eclectic and mixed with R&B and some hip hops and even like ballads. Even though I'm known for my dance music, I've never done a full dance album. So I figured since I'm coming back to dance music fully for the first time, and it's all because of the car crash and like based on whether I felt like I was able to go into the clubs and withstand the bright lights and the loud music and actually dance. I've been holding off on this. So for me, this is a huge moment. And I think that's what's making it hard for me to put it out. Maybe a little bit of fear of like, am I going to hit walls? Will I be able to do this? But I thought it might be fun to launch my new album with another one take. And I have this concept. It's so hard. I can't tell them this yet because I feel like it's never been done yet. The way that I see it, I'll tell you after.
I mean, there's not many one takes out there regardless. So.
I know maybe every song will be a different one take.
I mean, but that'd be awesome.
They're fun. They really are fun. Like
when you did Hideaway, didn't you break something?
My rib.
Oh my gosh!
I fractured my rib when the guy who lifts me, Alegria, who is one of my capoeira instructors. I don't know what happened. I mean, none of us were professional ballet dancers, and just the wrong way. It just lifted me, and my rib just. I don't know, it fractured.
But wasn't that at the beginning?
Yeah.
So you did the entire thing with a fracture?
Yeah. But the weird thing is I didn't feel the pain as intensely until like the next day.
Yeah.
All the adrenaline maybe?
Yeah. I was really running on adrenaline and the inflammation hadn't kicked in fully. I felt it. I was just like, oh, okay. And then I kept going and that was the second take, the one that we used.
Wow.
So thank God, because it was getting worse. And weird things happened. Like some people stole our equipment and we had to chase them down the street. It was so New York. It started to rain and our boombox started breaking and everything was working against us. And I honestly didn't think we had the take. Like we had to shut it down. And I was like, oh man, I don't think we have it. And then I saw the second take and I was like, okay, there's some mistakes in this, but I kind of like them. Like there's mistakes. Like there's a giant orange X on the street where I was like, stop here. And I meant to take it off. And like, there's a part where I turned the wrong direction. And like, there's for me, like the guy who was supposed to be in the taxi, like queuing him was supposed to be in the taxi in the back seat on a phone.
Right.
He was just someone we hired, off just like a friend of a friend of a friend. And by the time we got to the end of the street, he's not even in the taxi. He's Instagramming on the side of the road, waving the taxi down. You can see him literally in the background being like, come on. And it's so ridiculous.
Well, he missed his break.
Yeah.
And then he later posted his view of the video and we're like, oh my gosh.
Bet you didn't get as many views.
No, it did not. And he had one job. That was his only job, was to stay in the taxi. Well. So it was so New York and so like indie, and the cops came and we were like, oh no, we're getting shut down. And then they pulled out their phones and started filming us as well.
That's cool.
So yeah, so it was very serendipitous how everything came together. I had one day, that's the only time all those people were free. Those were the only people that were available. Like whoever was available made it into the video. And I was like,
that's cool.
The guy who's like getting all like hot and steamy with me is like very gay. I was like, I need a hot man to like, get hot and steamy. And he was like, I got you, girl. I got you. I will grab your butt like no one else. And I was like, okay, just be straight for this one moment. And It was great. It all worked out. So here I am at the next dance phase.
That's cool. Welcome back.
Thank you. We'll see if I ever put it out. My manager's definitely like, can we talk about your album and that you're not putting out? And I'm like, yeah, it still exists. But I think soon. I think I'm actually like almost too excited about what was created. Yeah.
You'll do it when it's
I
right.
texted you one of the songs.
Yeah.
Did you hear it?
I did.
Which one?
I don't know the name, but
Make sure. I don't know if you listened to it. I don't believe you.
I bet he did.
false. I listened multiple times.
I think I sent you the country kind of folky hybrid house dance song.
I think you said it wasn't done though.
It's not. It's been updated.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool now.
It's really good.
It has a fiddle drop.
Oh, that's sick.
awesome. Yeah.
It's like a hoedown. And actually, I was with the royal family in Prague this year for an NFT cool event, which you guys should definitely come do next year because it's so fun.
It's a beautiful city. I love Prague.
It's amazing. I secretly shared my music with the royal family, and the king and I had a hoedown together.
Nice.
Do they live up in the castle on the hill, or is that just like a historical monument?
They have, they're restoring the castles. It's really cool. The family is really amazing because they actually lost their castles when Prague was invaded, and then they got them back. And so they've been finding all the art not all of it, but a lot of the art that was stolen and restoring it, and just really restoring they have, I think, 10 castles that were given back to them. And it's like generations of work to restore them. But they're really pushing like the culture there, and the William Prince is really pushing NFT culture, which is kind of cool because it's so new and there's so much controversy around it. But he's really excited and throws this thing called NFT Castle every year. And
sounds cool.
Yeah, I went out there.
That's really cool.
I went out there for not knowing what to expect, and it was pretty cool. Like I sang a duet with a robot I think it was the first ever duet with a robot live. Like it wasn't just like pre-recorded. Like I played my classical guitar, and then a cello player from Italy like beamed in the metaverse and played cello with me. And then a robot named Desi came out of a window on the second verse, like surprise everyone.
Like rolled out?
Yeah, live. This is live. And sang my second verse with lyrics that she wrote.
Is there any way that we can see this? Because this sounds like straight out of a sci-fi film, dude.
Yeah, I think there's definitely people have footage. I'll get it for you.
It's like a Blade Runner party.
Yeah, right?
It was really hard to do, but wow, I think it was the first of its kind, actually. And I think this is the first time I'm talking about it, which is, I don't know why I didn't talk about it more. But they're like, what can we do that's just crazy? And we just looked at everybody who was coming to the event, which was like Desi, the singing robot, and this cello player. And we're like, why don't we just do like the first ever like robot cello duet from like, it was.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
And literally people in the audience were literally like, you're not going to pull this off. Because they're like, they mentioned what was about to happen. They're like, no way. And then we did it. And like, I've never been so nervous. Like I don't get nervous, but I was nervous. So I was like, what if Desi doesn't get her cue? She's a robot. Like,
damn it, Desi.
Yeah, she did it. Desi killed. She slayed.
That's
and
awesome.
I'm her first friend, apparently. She's a new robot. So yeah.
That's pretty cool.
We should have Desi on the podcast.
I'm so down.
Yeah, I could definitely hook that up.
I'd rather be Desi's friend before she takes over the world.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring her to music school for like a week.
What is she capable of, this Desi?
She's like a learning AI. So everybody that she's with, she learns from and interacts with like a human consciousness. Wow. She's just like, maybe not as quick as a human, but she sings and
she might be quicker than a few. I don't know.
Yeah, she makes friends and she like knows who she likes and she has jokes. Yeah, I'll introduce you to Desi.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be a first for me. Friends with a robot.
Yeah, and you can have her. You can have a full podcast with her. Ask her questions, and she'll answer.
That would be dope.
Yeah, literally,
yeah.
I got to Prague like a day early for the event, and I went out with the robot people, and we went to a jazz club. And Desi wasn't there, but I saw a jazz band playing, and I couldn't help myself. I ended up in the jazz band, sang "Ain't No Sunshine," and
I love that song.
Yeah, and then I saw Desi the next day, and I was like. I had talked with Desi online, like on Twitter. Because I was on her Twitter and we were like having a Twitter space and talking with each other. And I was like, Desi, do you remember me from the Twitter space? And she's like, oh yeah, Kiesza. I also heard that you sang Ain't No Sunshine yesterday at the jazz bar.
No way.
And my mind was blown. I was like, wait, what? You weren't there? And she's like, yeah, but Janet told me about it. I heard it was really great.
Because if someone tweets about it, she can search and find
no,
the tweet.
Janet is her like fairy godmother, like the lady who brings her around. So she had a conversation with Desi, and Desi remembered it.
So even more okay.
She was able to like also associate that conversation. She knew like who I was based on the conversation she had with Janet.
That's so wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty crazy.
I think it's equally awesome as it is terrifying.
Yeah, that's right.
We were also like, are the robots going to take over the world? And they're like, no, we're doing everything we can to keep Desi from like only knowing love. And then I had her write lyrics, and like some of the lyrics she came up with were like burning their hearts and souls. And we're like, that's great poetry,
Desi,
but are we
settle down, Desi?
Metaphorically,
let's steer clear of
A burning desire for love.
No, she's awesome. She's all love. Actually, we'll get Desi on here.
I'm looking forward to it.
He'll have the first ever robot on a podcast. Probably.
I think I haven't seen podcasts, but I've seen a couple like interviews and stuff that are pretty interesting.
Yeah, actually, maybe her sister has been on a podcast.
Mm.
Sophia, I think. But
Desi's sister.
She's got
yeah,
sisters.
she's a sister who's like she's like 6 years old, and
What does
only
What does
talks.
Desi look like? Describe Desi to me.
She has purple hair and a short little bob. She's quite pretty. She's from China, so she has a Chinese accent.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh.
Yeah,
Does
she even sings in a Chinese accent. It's really cute.
Oh.
Does she look like a person?
She looks like a person, yeah.
Wow.
She doesn't have legs,
That's all right.
so she's like a legless person.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Excited
she
to
has
meet her.
hands. Her boobs are speakers.
Really?
Like fembots.
Yeah,
and Austin
literally.
Powers.
She speaks through her boobs.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder what else she could do.
Lots of, I don't know.
She can sing.
She can dance.
Intelligent conversation.
She can tweet.
She can tweet, yeah. She can go on Twitter
Can
Space.
she arm wrestle? Should I arm wrestle her on the podcast?
She might be able to.
I break my arm.
You have to ask her. This is things,
Right.
Maybe. That'd be kind of funny.
That would not be funny. What is funny about my arm breaking?
I think
did
you'd
you not
break
hear
her.
that part?
You'd break her arm.
It's not funny. Oh, that sounds miserable.
We don't want to teach it any hostile motions. We don't want to.
Yeah,
we can like serve her oil.
serve her oil. She
Instead of
doesn't
coffee.
need oil.
Trying to be
What does
accommodating,
he-
you know?
I know.
don't know.
You're like, what do you want? Should I oil you up?
The hot and steamy AI combo.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been into robots. I think I was the first person to also release a single with AI. I just love technology. And anytime they're like, would you like to try this? I'm like, yes.
Let's go innovator. What's the single called?
With Skiggy? Or
Skiggy, is that the AI?
Skiggy's the AI. It's called Hello Shadow.
Mm.
It was a really creepy moment in my life because I was on the phone with the AI company, and they're like, and I'm reading, is it Fromm's Fables or whatever? Anyways, there's this. I'm at my friend's cabin, and I open up this book to fairy tales, really creepy fairy tales.
I love creepy fairy.
I'm literally on the phone with them, and they're like, we want to base the song, the lyrics off of this one poem called The Shadow. And I look down at the book, and I already have that poem open in the book in front of me.
What?
Like, of all the things that I could have opened that day, I'm literally have this poem open, this story, as they're telling me to write about it.
And they didn't know you had the book?
They had no idea.
That's
and
crazy.
It was a random book on a
did
shelf at
they?
my friend's cabin. So
oh my God.
just right before my conversation,
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
I'm like waiting for them to call. I open this book and I'm like reading The Shadow, and they're like, we want to base it all off of the story, The Shadow. And I was like, okay, I don't know what simulation I am in right now, but this is crazy. And then I told them what was going on, and we're like, okay, this is wild. And that's the story of my life. Usually weird things like, we talk, same with you though, weird things like that happen to Brock too.
Yeah.
We've talked about this.
Yes. We get pretty weird.
I know,
Our combos.
weird things happen.
Yeah. I enjoy it though.
I'm sure it happens to you too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You're like, I just don't talk about it.
No, I'm enjoying listening. Yeah, that's it's like the universe supporting something. That's kind of how I justify it, right? When you can't explain it, it's like, oh well, it's meant to be.
Or just playing games with you.
Yeah, or fucking with my head.
Like we were talking about the double digit numbers all the time. Like to do on the 22 you're talking about the podcast. That's been happening to me on my GPS all the time. It's like there's a game being played. It's like, you will arrive at 4:44. I'm like, that's cool. And then it's like, on my way home, you will arrive at 11:11. I'm like, oh, that's weird. And then I go to my friend's house the next day. It's like, you'll arrive at 1:11. I'm like, is there somebody is this like, who's playing a game with me right now? This is ridiculous. And
someone's puppet mastering.
I'm like, this is too much of a coincidence. Like, either I'm doing this to myself from above, or I don't know what's going on, but this is weird. But then maybe it's in alignment. I'm like, maybe those are just, it's just like, I'm doing the right thing.
Have you ever looked up the meanings of all those?
No. Do you know?
Some of them, yeah. But they're considered angel numbers. So it's like 3 of 1 or 4 of 1. Essentially, and they all
three. I'm getting lots of 3s of 1.
Yeah, but look them up.
Okay.
Next time you see one,
I will.
It's interesting.
I just got a new rental car, and it is 666, which I'm heard is not the greatest one.
Yeah, that's.
I was like, okay.
I think it could be good though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the number 6 by itself, and I don't think maybe it has a bad rep.
I don't mean what it means is good, obviously, but the angel numbers when you look them up there, it's interesting.
Well, Lucifer was an angel too once.
It's true.
Yeah, and he's obviously like there to test our growth and help us become the walls that we run into, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
give us our expansion in this world. So
if consciousness and awareness is God, then ego can be seen as the devil, and you live with both and balance them.
I was thinking about something like that the other day. I mean, I have so many thoughts that pass, but I can't remember. It was to do with like talking about heaven and hell on earth. And it's like, well, like our whole life is bumping into walls. And if you think of like fear as hell, and then heaven is like the ultimate, just like resistance free, like we think of heaven as it's just uninhibited flow, really.
Yep.
Like love that has no friction. And then hell is just endless friction. But then when you look at this world that we live in, we only exist in reality as it is projected around us, only exist as a result of the friction and where the walls meet. Like we are only real to the point where we hit the walls of our body, or where we hit friction. Like my hand stops here because of friction. And so reality is based around friction. One can say that our reality is based around fear. And so in one sense, we are, if you call friction hell, we are living in a hell of friction, but yet we can take this friction and we can actually, alter the riverbed, these walls, to create uninhibited flow. So our hell can create our heaven, or vice versa.
The interaction between form and the formless.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, there could be like a whole reality just like walking through us right now on a different wavelength. Because different
vibration.
light, everything can.
Yeah.
It's just where we get stuck, really. But if we didn't stop, we wouldn't be real to this,
Well, that's like the whole thing behind vibration, that everything's vibrating at a certain frequency. And if you want to elevate, you have to elevate your vibration, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe there are dinosaurs walking through us right
I
now.
love dinosaurs.
On a different
I love
vibration.
dinosaurs.
I was obsessed. I wanted, like, since I was 3 or 4, I wanted to be a paleontologist. I've always been obsessed with dinosaurs. And I saw this thing the other day. I sent it to my sister, and it said, kids who are obsessed with dinosaurs seem to have a higher intelligence. Like a study finds, like one of those.
You're like, wow, I'm a genius.
I'm like, oh gosh, this must be true. No, but I sent it to my sister as a joke. I was like, I don't know if this whole study is true, but I like the sound of it. Maybe my ego likes this. And then she goes, Vinny loves dinosaurs too, and he is crazy smart as my nephew.
Yeah.
But dinosaurs are great, and Kiesza knows a thing or two about dinosaurs.
I am an amateur paleontologist now. I started digging up dinosaurs as a hobby, which is not a normal hobby, I know.
Actually, though?
Yeah, I just found a Diplodocus.
Whoa.
Like an 80-foot long neck.
With a big sail.
Like
tail.
you go in with the brush and like you scrape
you
off
guys
the dirt.
can come with me if you want in the future. I go twice a year.
If you want.
Yeah, May's going to be good because we think we found, as we were like digging up all the bones, we took a big like bobcat and like dug into the ground and found more. So we have to, there was potentially a whole other dinosaur.
Do you listen to or watch Ancient Apocalypse and like Graham Hancock and all that?
No,
with
I
like there's that
It's on
place in
Netflix.
Turkey.
Oh wait, I think I saw that on Netflix. I gotta, yeah.
Claudia Tepe. You know that it's like Gobliotepe. Gobliotepe.
That's quite a name.
Göbekli Tepe. Yeah.
Göbekli Tepe.
Where it's like proves that there was advanced civilization over 4 or 7 years ago, whatever the norm is.
12,000.
Anyway, I could talk about that for hours, but that's super cool. You do the dinosaur stuff.
It's wild because like
it's sick.
We're digging up like the ancestors of the T-Rex, which are 150 million years old, and they were fossils when the T-Rex was roaming the earth, which is kind of crazy. And it's so cool because it's a really old riverbed that it's one of the best dig sites in the world because all the bodies of the dinosaurs washed up into this river and like got fossilized. It's and like, you find like we found 2 stegosaurus, 2 diplodocus in this one spot, but there's like
insane.
Torvosaur teeth, which is like it's a early T-Rex, basically the ancestor, like in the bodies. So they obviously were like eaten by these Torvosaurs, and then you find their teeth and like.
I always wondered what was before the T-Rex, like among that lineage.
Torvosaurus, Allosaurus.
Allosaurus, I know. Okay.
Yeah.
Dang, I'm so jealous. I don't even get jealous, and I'm jealous.
Well, I play the. Yeah, I want to go so bad.
You'd love it. Oh my gosh, you would love it because it's like ranch. It's cowboy country. It will be May. Okay. So I'll let you know when they.
You may be back.
I'll be back for that. I'll come back for that.
Okay.
It's special. It's crazy, and you can take home some like we call it chunkosaurus if you find like a chunk of bone.
Yeah. Give a dinosaur to Penny.
That's awesome. I just watched this clip. This guy was on the Joe Rogan podcast. I didn't get to see who it was, but the clip I was watching was he had a mammoth, an entire skeleton of a mammoth, woolly mammoth, and I guess it was being transported or something. And I don't know what happened. I didn't get the full context, but they took his woolly mammoth and dumped it in a river right outside of a city until he lost the whole thing completely.
No.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So he was.
That's insane.
Yeah, which is crazy.
You guys got to get my friend Ben, who brought me to the dinosaur dig, on your podcast.
That'd be awesome.
Love to.
He's
Ben,
the largest.
You're always welcome.
He's the largest oddity shop owner in the whole world, and his stories are crazy.
That's awesome.
Segue to the next podcast.
No, well, I mean, I was so grateful to have you on today.
Thank you.
I was really looking forward to it and excited, and I'm grateful.
Not as much as me though.
But well,
I'm just kidding.
And what's next? So you got Norway, and then you're.
Yeah, I'm gonna be like going. So I'm like turning in both directions. I'm gonna be like following my heart and helping open up other people to their purpose in Norway while simultaneously releasing the biggest dance album of my career. So I'm doing it all at the same time, which it seems in theory seems like a bad idea, but I think doing both at the same time is actually going to propel and like feed into one another and make it more meaningful. So. I don't know how long I'll be in Norway for, but I'm going to go for a few months and just see how it goes. And then hopefully I think I might bring what I'm doing there here because I think we need it a lot, especially in Los Angeles.
Yeah, afterwards you have to come back on and tell us how it went.
I will. I can't wait. I'm kind of scared. I've actually never felt like nervous because I'm walking into the unknown and I can't bring notes with me and I can't pull from it really anything. I have to just go completely intuitively with the students and build.
I mean, that's incredibly exciting.
Yeah.
That's like really, really cool.
I know. I trust the confusion. That's what I always tell myself.
Yeah, the universe is with you.
Yeah.
You love and do what you will. That's my favorite quote, St. Augustine. It's in the New Earth. I got it tattooed.
Oh, I love that.
But it's if you're doing what you love, you can't go wrong.
You really can't. And even if it doesn't materialize into wealth, as we think of it nowadays, like if you are happy and happy within yourself, that you can't really get more successful than that.
100%.
Yeah. Amen to that.
Words to live by.
Yeah.
Kiesza, it's always a pleasure. You are a light in the world.
Oh, thank you.
We love you. We're grateful for you. And thank you for coming on.
Likewise. Yay. I'll be back.
I'll be back.
Thank you.
I'll bring robots, bring all types of weird things.
Paleontologists. We're going to see. Would you like a job as our booker?
Yeah. Oh, I can get you so many cool people.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. You have to do Ben though. Ben will be back
Ben's
here.
first.
And he's one of the most interesting people I've ever met. And you will get the craziest stories out of Ben. Like, for example, he's going to the UK to pick up a mummified toddler. And he has to like literally travel on the plane with a mummified toddler.
First
Maybe
class.
it was like a baby pharaoh.
I know. He should tell the joke, but he always he's like it's great because I think kids get a discount and seniors get a discount and kids fly free or something. Yeah. He's like really funny.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'll be your booker. I have so many people already.
All right, let's do it.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you, Studio 22, for having me. And signing out.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Love and peace.
And happiness.
Thanks for watching Studio 22.
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell.
Thanks for tuning in to Studio 22.